Do the Red Sox have a good future? Well, let's talk to the man who's watching the Red Sox future, Worcester Red Sox voice, Mike Antonellis, on this episode of Locked On MLB.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans. Welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. If you don't believe me, you can call me Sully. I have been a baseball podcaster for well over a decade now, and we're about to begin my sixth season here at the Locked On Podcast Network. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or on Instagram. You can follow me. I'm your pal Sully with Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. And if you like the show and you're following us on social media or liking us here on YouTube, for those of you who are watching the video, be sure to leave that hashtag everyday Sully so I see who is listening to us every single day. Today's episode of Locked On MLB is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app and create an account and use code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. So as I mentioned before, we are going to be having a visit from Mike Antonellis. He is the voice of the Worcester Red Sox, the AAA team in Worcester, Massachusetts. We'll talk a little bit about the state of the Red Sox right now, some people who are coming up through the systems, and maybe a mindset that more Red Sox fans should take, that maybe not all is so bad. Quickly, let's talk about the trivia question we had going into the show. Only four players in Angels history have accumulated a 40 career WAR. Only two of those players have a last name that is not that of a fish. That's right. So who are the two greatest, according to WAR, non-fish players in the history of the Angels? We got a bunch of really great guesses. A lot of people said Vlad Guerrero, but that's actually not going to be the case. Jonathan Curran said Jim Edmonds, and he said that Torrey Hunter. He thought Nolan Ryan maybe, but realized he probably wasn't there for long enough. But nope, one person did get it completely right, and that was our good friend, Mr. Scott Horsemeyer, who commented the two Angels players who earned 40 career WAR without a fish last name are, drumroll please, Jim Fregosi and Chuck Finley. Chuck Finley had a remarkable career for a long period of time, had the highest career WAR of any Angel player. Great left-handed pitcher for a long time. And Jim Fregosi was one of the early superstars in the Angels' history, and they decided to trade him to the Mets for Nolan Ryan. Safe to say that one worked for the Angels. Of course, the two fish names, they would be Mike Trout and Tim Salmon. Okay, let's get right to our conversation. Mike Antonellis is the voice of the Worcester Red Sox. He had been with the Portland Sea Dogs and the Pawtucket Red Sox. He's now the voice of the Worcester Red Sox. And we're going to talk a little bit about the state of the team and the state of their minor leagues, and maybe reasons why Red Sox fans should not be so depressed. There's a conversation we had with Mike Antonellis.
Hey, Sully, thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Oh, absolutely. I still have to say, as you can see from my background here, I go back to the 70s and the 80s with the Red Sox, and I'm still getting used to saying the Worcester Red Sox because they've been the Pawtucket Red Sox my whole life. But before we cannonball into the potentials for the 2024 season, how is Worcester embracing the Woo Sox?
They absolutely love it. The city, Worcester was forever a kind of a budding joke in Massachusetts where it wasn't the best place to go. And the leaders wanted to change that. And when there was an opportunity to get the Woo Sox from Larry Lucchino, they really presented them a great package and the city got behind it, and they had sponsors lined up, and they really embraced the ballpark's located in the heart of the city, and
Mm-hmm.
they've really run with that. The W on a lot of our things looks like a hug,
Mm-hmm.
and it's terrific. And this will be my 4th year there, and it never gets old going to the ballpark there, and it's like a big league facility minus the seating capacity.
Right. I mean, everything I've seen has been remarkable. It's been, as I said, my earliest memories, for a nanosecond, they were called the Rhode Island Red Sox in the
Yeah,
70s, but it was always, it was funny that sending someone to Pawtucket almost sounds like a curse word.
yeah,
It certainly is mentioned in many, many limericks, but it just sort of seemed like a curse. Oh, send him to Pawtucket. Get that guy to Pawtucket.
yeah.
But as Worcester, I've had many of my relatives went to Holy Cross. I know a little bit about the Big Woo and the Centrum and everything like that, but I think it's wonderful. I think it's wonderful that Worcester has that identity, that there is that connection. It's one thing I've always loved about a lot of the Red Sox farm teams over the years, that they have been New England based. And so there is this sense of whether you're going to some of the teams like Lowell in the past, or Portland, or New Britain, or Pawtucket, or now
Mm.
Worcester, you're sticking with the New England centric part of it and still connecting with the fans. Our mutual friend, who's been a guest on this show, I've been a guest on her show. She's one of many Red Sox fans that I interviewed who are all complaining about the Red Sox making enough moves, not being aggressive enough.
Well, I think that a lot of what Red Sox fans should do is kind of look around to see what teams are doing. And I always look at what Atlanta's done. I mean, Atlanta built that amazing core of players through their own. I think the Red Sox can't keep switching leadership. I mean, I think that's one thing that's really killed them. But having your own players works. Yeah, I mean, we looked at the guys that left. I mean, we were in love with Mookie Betts. We love Andrew Benintendi, Bogarts. I think Atlanta kind of had the similar situation where special position players, and I mean, and they did it with pitching too, and they locked those guys up early. I don't know if the Red Sox can do that. I think sometimes when guys are in your system, the teams with money, maybe they do hold out, but I think there is definitely a different formula now that you're seeing in baseball. Look what Bobby Witt Jr. just got. Uh, Look at the fact that marquee names represented by Boris were not signed. And we only look, Sully, at the Red Sox. Why wouldn't the Rangers or the Diamondbacks, 2 of the finalists last year, why wouldn't they have added stud arms? I think there's just different thinking. I think the Red Sox have really built a lot over these last few years. They needed to redo the foundation. I think they've done it. And
Mm-hmm.
pitching was where they lacked, but that's going to take some time.
I don't think they're better than Baltimore. I don't think they're better than Tampa, and I'll be man after man. I don't think they're better than the Yankees. And there's a time where you take a look and say, hey, wait a minute. We have a Tristan Casas. We have, Devers signed long term. Let's not forget he's still in his 20s. We have the likes of Bello. We have the likes of Crawford. We just got the second baseman we just got in the sale trade, who is hopefully going to be there for a little while.
Yes.
We have oh God, I always butcher his name, Cedar Rafaela, who is in the farm system and is as talent up the wazoo.
Yes.
There's a lot of good young players there, and if we look at 2024 as an opportunity to give some of those young players a shot, to give some of those young players a chance to prove themselves on the major league level instead of shooting for the stars every year, yeah, I think we could be looking at a team in 2025 that could be a legitimate wild card contender and for the rest of the decade look really good. You know what? I am going to be buying lots of baseball tickets as the season gets going. I may go buy some hockey tickets and some basketball tickets when the playoffs start here in Los Angeles. It's going to be fun to see these games live, and I want the excitement to be in the arena, not in buying the tickets. You shouldn't have to worry when you buy tickets for your next event, which means you should be using Gametime. Gametime is the fast and easiest way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. They got killer last-minute deals with all-in prices, views from your seat, and the best price guarantee. And they got last-minute ticket deals, flash deals, zone deals, Easy to find and buy tickets for every kind of event in your area, views from the seats in the venue, and the lowest price guaranteed, event cancellation, job loss protection, etc. And Gametime is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. You see the view of the seat, so you know what you're getting into. They got the all-in prices, none of those hidden fees, and you can buy the tickets in seconds. 2 taps, boom, boom. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON, LOCKED, for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, the lowest prices. Do you know what? They're guaranteed. In case you didn't know it, Locked On is launching the first ever national 24/7 streaming sports channel on YouTube. And now it's available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today. It's now available on the free Fire TV's channel app. All right, let's get back to our conversation with Mike Antonellis.
I love what they've done, and people are going to look back. I think you can always do this. I think Ben Cherington did a great job leading into Dombrowski, but Chaim Bloom made some really good moves. And from what some of the scouts told me, Kyle Teal is a top tier catcher. They are impossible to find in the drafts. Look at when the Red Sox found Sandy Leon off waivers. They were lucky to have Christian Vasquez. Catching is impossible. They're going to be good up the mill for looks like maybe a long, long time.
Now, of course, the big sort of jewel in the crown is Marcelo Meyer.
Yes.
And he is going to be, if I'm not mistaken, is he going to be a Woo Sox this year? Is he going to be with the Woo Sox, or is he going to be in?
Yeah, I think he got hurt last year in Portland, so he'll probably start there, but we're hoping at some point, everything has changed with these young guys now. I mean, they can go right through. I think the young player now is completely different. They can handle playing at the highest level, but we should have a really good squad in Worcester. But that Portland team will be loaded with Teal, Meyer, Roman Anthony, 19 years old. I mean, they just got to find pitching. But Sully, that's been the case. I mean, John Lester was a Dan Duquette draft pick. It's been the case for 5 regimes. And it's the case really all over baseball. I can honestly tell you, 3 years in the International League, I've seen 3 good starters: Manoah, Tanner Bybee, and Brian Bayo. That's it.
Yeah. Well, one of them's a Red Sox.
One of them's a Red Sox. Yep.
But think about, you mentioned Lester. When you think about the last 2 real good runs the Red Sox did in the postseason, would be winning the World Series in 2018 and getting to the ALCS in 2021. Their starting rotation in 2018, the rotation, if I'm not mistaken, was Sale, Price, Eovaldi, Eduardo Rodriguez, and David. I mentioned Price. Who I'm missing one in there. Oh, Porcello.
Porcello, yeah.
Yeah. None of those were from their farm system.
Yeah. Good point.
One of them, they had to trade away a couple of their top prospects to Chicago. They flipped Cespedes, who basically Lester became Cespedes, became Porcello.
Yeah.
Price was a big time free agent. Eovaldi was a signed free agent. I think the other starting pitcher Rodriguez was in the Andrew Miller trade. I am doing some of this from memory. And Pomerantz, who also started on that team, was a free agent signing. So they won a World Series without a homegrown starter.
Yeah.
And then when you looked at the team in the one in 21, they still had Sale, they still had Eovaldi, they still had, if I remember, they had Eduardo Rodriguez. There's another starter I'm not remembering, but they haven't been developing pitchers. The last bumper they had was the combination of Lester and, to a lesser degree, Clay Buchholz.
Yeah. And you think about it, when they traded for Rodriguez, people were up in arms, but you gave away a reliever for someone who was a part of your rotation. And that was a really sleeper deal that they made. And I think they've made a few here, getting some potential starters that they hope. But yeah, I agree with you. I think what's happened though with them is you don't want to get yourself in a point where you're desperate. And I think that's what Boris thought was going to happen, that they'd be so desperate and he would dangle Montgomery. But good for them standing pat on this, because I don't think Montgomery's worth 7-8 years. That's a
No,
lot.
I think Montgomery is perfect for a team that already has about 2 or 3 good starters on them, and then he gives them the depth that they need. And if he has a terrific postseason like he did last year, terrific. I think the Red Sox should pull the trigger on a move like that as a piece to the puzzle, as opposed to we're going to rebuild. I don't think you can rebuild a pitching staff through free agents, through veteran free agents. I really don't think you can do that. Someone may show me an example of it happening, but I think there has to be pitching depth that comes to their system. And I think they're setting up a good starting 9. I think they're setting up a good defense and a good solid pitching, a good solid lineup. But yeah, they need that ace. And the Trey Balls of the world and the other people that they drafted in the past.
Yes,
I wanted Trey Ball to work because I love that. Such a great baseball name. But
and a good guy too.
I mean,
good guy. Yeah.
My heart always breaks when I hear about players who are, draft picks and good guys, and it just doesn't quite. The Rubik's Cube just doesn't quite fit.
Yeah, it's hard. And I do hear the developing. It's also, you got to draft the right guys. You can only do so much. But I'm with you on position player wise. I mean, you flip that script, they have been unbelievable. I told people in the early 2000s, this is not normal, when Pedroia and Ellsbury, these guys are just going up and they're flying through. They've had a real good run with that. I mean, up to Mookie, Xander, Devers.
Yeah, I was going to say Devers coming through there. Yeah, I mean,
I mean, it's quick, hardly playing any AAA.
It wouldn't kill me to see them going through another year putting it together, and also wouldn't kill me if they take out some of their outfield depth and Kenley Jansen and try to flip that for a little bit of pitching depth on this squad here. I don't see the value of keeping Kenley Jansen beyond this year.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, because I think that he does present good value. I mean, I think if you're a team that is very close, you saw what he did last year. I mean, he's pretty lights out. It takes a special person in that inning, that last inning. You can't put anyone there. He's proven he can do that. He'll be much better with somebody. And yeah, I think that's something, and that's replaceable. We've seen that over the years.
Hey, basketball fans, you know what you should be doing? You should be shooting it from downtown and going to America's #1 sports book, which is FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, same game parlays that are live, exclusive props, and more. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel is an official sportsbook partner of the National Basketball Association. And a quick reminder that Locked On has begun the first ever national sports 24 streaming channel on YouTube. And now it's available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local extras of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fires TV channel app. Let's continue our conversation with Mike Antonellis.
But one thing you said that is so crucial and so underrated, you cannot have another year defensively like they did. That was embarrassing at points.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
You can't.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it was. They gave so many extra outs, and especially when you're bringing in the Cutter Crawfords and the Bellas and some of these young pitchers who you're hoping are going to take it to the next step. And you got to get them to the point where they have the confidence to throw their best pitches, knowing that the defense is behind them.
Yeah.
And if they don't have that, which they didn't have last year, their defense was rancid. And you're trying to, I mean, in so many ways, I think the most underrated aspect if you're trying to build a young pitching staff is, obviously, you mentioned this earlier, make sure you got a good quality catcher behind there, but also have good gloves out there. If you're trying to build up a pitching staff, you have to have a really good defensive team. Otherwise, they aren't going to have the confidence to throw their best pitch. And you saw that all year last year. I didn't think the Red Sox were going to do squat last year, and they didn't. But they should not have been a sub 500 team. If they had a decent defense, they would have been, 82, 83 wins, which these days will get you in the World Series.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's still, we fixate so much on the offense. They were in the top 5, 6, I think, in runs scored or batting average.
Yeah,
they were, and they'll still score runs this year, but you cannot, and that I would think for free agents coming in, those big time pitchers that are getting a lot of money, they don't want to, their numbers matter to them. They're not going to pitch somewhere. And I think they corrected that though. And that had to be eating at Alex Cora. And, sometimes I read between the lines, like, I'm sure maybe he clashed a little bit with Heim in that department, maybe felt that defense wasn't valued. I don't think that was the case, but that is frustrating. In the big leagues, you can't give any team an extra out. It's just, I see it in the minor leagues, but up there, forget it.
By the way, first of all, I was never the biggest Verdugo fan in the world.
Yeah.
He was kind of a walking reminder of the Betts trade, and his past was not a smidge checkered. Let's just be kind.
Sure.
And you got the sense that on the field, yes, he would go on runs. He went on a really good run shortly before, the first half of the season last year, where like, oh, all right, it's starting to click.
Yes.
And then it tails off, and it just was kind of like, oh man, is this guy ever gonna? Is it all good? Is he gonna ever solve this Rubik's Cube? And I actually exhaled when I saw he was sent packing to the Yankees, and they got a couple of young pitchers in exchange, because I thought, like, yeah, this guy's going to be gone after this year. Throw something in the farm and see what you can get.
So, I told Melissa a lot, and I told a lot of the beat writers, Wilyer Abreu, flip flop that position. To me, you lose nothing. He to me, he's a much better defender. His arm is better. He can play all 3 outfield spots, but you saw what that guy last year didn't phase him one bit being in the big leagues from that first day in Houston.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, so basically you've switched those guys, and you've got who they hope, Richard Fitz, the top pitching prospect in the Yankee system, a starter. So basically that's the move. And will Verdugo do well in New York? Probably. He's going to have better guys around him, but I'm with you. It's way too highs, way too lows. And, I think maybe the Red Sox obviously they pushed him because of the Mookie deal. That's what happens.
Quick question about the Lucas Giolito.
Yeah.
And I mean that's obviously that's obviously a bit of a for the lack of a better word, a bit of a Hail Mary. You're hoping you get you hope you're getting a good you're hoping you're getting the a good version of him and everything. But and it's kind of a high risk a low risk, high reward situation here. What are your thoughts on that? And how do you think that this, what role do you think he's going to play on the team moving forward?
Well, he's full of character. I don't know if you know his background. His the grandfather in Seinfeld, and so I think he'll be a great clubhouse guy. I know he went through a divorce last year that cannot be easy during a baseball season. And I think for pitcher, I've seen this before, philosophies. I remember when Eduardo Rodriguez was traded from Baltimore system to Boston's. He actually joined us, and we were on a road trip. And I remember him, like, he was not that good in ball. Like, he just wasn't someone that wowed us. And he was told that he could not throw a lot of fastballs. Baltimore didn't like that, and the Red Sox didn't care. And we saw 97. We saw a different pitcher. So sometimes there are different philosophies. What the teams he was with before, maybe their strategies will be different with the Red Sox. I think the Red Sox are really good at letting the pitchers kind of, what their strengths are. He's going to be working with a fantastic pitching coach in Andrew Bailey. And so I think this is probably needed for him, but I think he's going to help those other guys too. You need to have some older guys around in pitching, especially rotation. Help Bayo too.
Yeah. Well, that's, the Bayo situation having a stable veteran like Giolito.
Yeah.
I fans of the show will know I bring up this example all the time, but I think of Charlie Leibrandt when he was signed by the Braves in the early 90s, and the Braves were overflowing with talent. They had Smoltz and Glavine, obviously. They had Avery, Merker, Pete Smith, Marvin Freeman, Mark Wohlers came on a little bit. I mean, they had all these talented young pitchers on the team, and in comes Leibrandt, who was coming off of a World Series championship a few years ago with Kansas City, but he was that veteran that okay, a lot of the pitchers there credit his presence on that team as being a settling force and allowed everyone to learn their roles. Now, obviously, they superseded him, but I think when you have a bunch of good young pitchers in there and you bring in a stable veteran who at least what you're going to get out of him, probably just get a good solid season, that could have a ripple effect that goes beyond the back of the baseball card, which I think the Red Sox need with their current pitching staff.
Yeah, it's a great point. Pivetta, I think, is growing into that role, but baseball is so unique with other sports because you have a set of players that don't play all the time. In football, you don't have a part of your team that just doesn't play. So there'll be times in the dugout where Giolito and Bayo they'll have 9 innings of a mentor or learning session. Mm-hmm. All of that stuff is not jabber or hocus pocus stuff. That clubhouse dynamic and having good guys around really does work. But yeah, I mean, it will take a little pressure off Bayo, who I think will take a lot of leaps going into this year. But yeah, I'm with you. I love those veteran guys, and it seems to always have worked. And Leibrandt's a great example of that.
Yeah. Well, look at Mike Antonellis. Give me I'll put you on the spot.
Yeah.
Give me your prediction for the Red Sox this year.
I'm going to go with 85 wins. I'm going to be a little optimistic. So,
okay. All right.
Yeah.
I'm going to go even 500.
Okay.
I'm going to go even 500, miss the playoffs by a few games, but have a good September to make everyone go, wait a minute. Yeah. It's going to be like the year before Morgan Magic. I always date myself with my 80s Red Sox team, but I remember one of my favorite Red Sox years was 87, which was a year they didn't contend, but they brought up Greenwell. They brought up Sam Horn. They brought up Ellis Burks, Todd Benzinger, Jody Reed, Tom Bolton, John Marzano. They're all these young players who added a little bit of life, and by the next year they were playoff contenders. So I'm hoping that the sons of Sam Horn will, feel that magic again. Mike Antonellis, why don't you tell people where they can follow you?
Yeah, Twitter is the best, at the Radio Mike. If you go there, I have links to everything, and I have all kinds of things that I'm working on as well, in addition to broadcasting Woo Sox games.
And by the way, let's do the trivia question. You don't answer it, Mike. Okay. The trivia question is this. It's Red Sox oriented, and it's Red Sox farm system oriented. And that is this. Who is the only first-round draft pick the Red Sox have ever made who's made it to the Hall of Fame? Only one first-round pick by the Boston Red Sox has a plaque in Cooperstown. That is your trivia question. Put it down here at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, or whatever the hell it's called now. Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Talking Woo Sox, not Paw Sox. And looking at the team and wondering, hey, maybe taking one step back to take 5 steps forward is the worst thing. With Mike Antonellis, the voice of the Worcester Red Sox. This has been Locked On MLB. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.